Welcome to the Real Estate Show on KMED this weekend. Pete Belcaster and Joe Brett, the real estate guys, with you in the house. Welcome to the show. We're both real estate brokers with John L. Scott in Southern Oregon, and we get together with you once a week here on KMED to talk about all sorts of real estate-related issues and topics. Over 400 times we've done this, and each time it seems like we learn something from our hour together with you, with our listeners. One of the best things we always tell you is that we want you to be smart real estate consumers by listening to some of the guests that we have on about the market conditions, because they're changing weekly, it seems like.
And
right?
I still hear from our loyal listeners out there. Appreciate you so much. That one of the best things that you and I do, Pete, is just facilitate a smooth flow of the program and bring great guests on who bring the information to this local market that you just can't get anywhere else on a weekly basis. Well, and it really, over time, I've come to really appreciate what a great service that is for our listeners.
Alice Lien is in the house with us today. She's a broker with John L. Scott. Been here before. How are you doing here?
Yeah,
this is like mid-February almost, Alice, right?
Yep, and beautiful weather. The housing market's hot as always. So
well, hot is a very interesting definition of when you talk about real estate, isn't it? You know, that's for sure. Anyway, well, you've been busy, I know. Everything, isn't it?
We didn't really have much of a slowdown this winter, and that's not our normal MO for a little valley. We're usually a little seasonal, and it was kind of busy this time, wasn't it, guys?
I agree with you there. Don McCoy is here also. Don's been with us before. Nice to have you here as well.
Thank you, Pete.
You experienced the same
Joe.
thing as everything. It really was not a slowdown over the winter months, was it?
That's right. And there was still a lot of phone calls coming in, people looking for things, and sellers testing the market and seeing if they should step in or not.
Yeah. Well, here we're almost, it feels like spring almost, which is not a good sign. And I just think we're going to have, I hope we don't go through the summer like we did 2 years ago, you know, when there's no water and we're into these drought conditions. But boy, hopefully with Mount Ashland closing this week, gosh, I hope we get some snow and rain in the next month or two, don't you? Man, we really need it. That's for sure. Anyway, because it affects the market. It affects people's psyche, I think, about no water. You know, you don't have irrigation water. What are you going to do?
And the houses, you know, the people that are trying to sell their homes, the houses just show better. The curb appeal, the very first thing a buyer sees, you know, is a beautiful front facade and yard. So if we don't have water, it does make a difference.
It certainly does.
Yep, daffodils are already springing up out of the ground, though.
Yeah, well, it's mid-February, or mid-February, and it's strange. I hope that it doesn't. I hope this doesn't last long, for sure.
I've mowed my little backyard patch twice in the last 10 days, and that's just unusual.
All right. Well, the stats are out. Before we get started, I just want to bring people up to date on them of what kind of took place the last 3 months across the Jackson and Josephine counties. In Jackson County, I mean, the biggest story, you know, it comes out, seems like every month, is what's the rise in the median price. Dawn, it went up 8.9% the last 3 months over a year ago. That's a pretty healthy market in terms of gain, isn't it?
It really is. That should just give people a sense that if they're thinking about getting in, get in now and right away.
But why do you say that? Tell people why you say that.
Because interest rates are starting to eke up a little bit. Might as well get it while the interest rates are low.
Yeah.
And get it while the price of property is still under control. It's because it's starting to rise.
Well, isn't this the issue that if you went up 9% this year, it's going to go up 9% next year, and so your house is going to increase, and the price is going to increase, right?
Well,
I mean,
I'm just thinking that a lot of people are looking for a market correction, but are we going to have one when we have such low inventory?
Well, but inventory is coming back. Alice, you see that?
Yeah, we're seeing our days on market ever so slightly expanding.
Increase.
And a normal neutral market, this is the part we have to remember, that in a normal neutral market where the buyer's not in charge, the seller's not in charge, that's supposed to be about 180 days, 6 months. That means it's a normal market. It should take 6 months to sell your house, not 6 minutes. But we've gotten used to this hyper-accelerated seller's market over the last 3-4 years, depending on what neighborhood you're in. And we're starting to see a little bit more inventory. People are starting to talk about putting their house on the market, and we should look to see this spring if that really stabilizes.
All right. Well, you're right about that, because in those stats show we had a 14% increase from a year ago in new listings, available properties on the market. That hasn't been that high in a long, long, long time. So you're right, Alice. They are coming back on.
But we
they
still
are
don't-
getting there, but there's still not enough to have
There's
an
not
effect
enough.
on the market. That's what's the problem,
There's
right?
still not enough.
All right.
And I've been tracking a few hyper-local areas for my buyers. Grants Pass has been really interesting. Boy, 3-2s up there in good neighborhoods and of good age are well over $300,000, and they've been trending there since last fall. And they're starting to creep back down because I think the buyers are seeing, man, for 325, wow. I mean, there's more things out there. There's properties out there. So the sellers almost got to a point where they're having to bring it back down because we've got the bulk of the buyers are not up in the $300,000 range. They're right down there just below that and just waiting to snap up properties.
Especially if they're an FHA buyer. Our region has a cap on what an FHA buyer can pay.
Yeah. And what is that?
I think it's just a little over 300 now, and that's a very recent rise up from what was it? 270, 280.
So that makes a big difference for FHA for loans then for that.
Correct.
In that buy. Well,
where's the buyer's pool at, and where are you at, and are you going to make the match?
That's right.
Well, just to put it in perspective of what it is, 5 years ago, the median price of a sale of a house in Jackson County was $180,000. Today, it's $268,000. That's an increase of 47% in 5 years. In Josephine County, because you're talking about being in a hot market, prices increased a year ago 8%, with a little bit less in Jackson County, but they increased from 5 years ago 57% on the median.
Yeah.
That is a huge increase.
Yeah,
My goodness, that's really a lot, isn't it?
Even more so than Jackson
Can you imagine
County.
if there was a lot more properties out there? I mean, it would have been a crazier market than it is today. Oh, anyway, what else shows you in the new construction? I'll just give you a quick update on that. That's about the same as it was a year ago. In Jackson County, 63. In Josephine County, 19. 19 new homes in Josephine County ain't going to cut it, for a period of time. They need more than that there. The interesting part was that rural properties in Jackson County declined by price change by almost 6% over a year ago. And it's even so. Think of it. 228,000 was the average 5 years ago. It's 350 today. It's up 53% though overall in rural properties, Don McCoy. But they're down last year. Why do you think that is? The cannabis thing. Don't you think the cannabis world stayed having an effect in it?
It really did, and I think we're going to see a backlash on that, don't you?
Well, look at this. It's down 6% in the value in rural properties a year ago, where 5 years it was 53% increase. Something happened in the last year.
There's going to be an adjustment.
Something has happened in the last year.
Yeah,
market correction out of the thing.
Stock market terms.
Yeah. Well, what are you two seeing, Alice and Dawn, in just terms of buyers that you're dealing with? What are they looking for? What kind of? Just tell us a little bit about what you're experiencing.
I feel a tremendous amount of energy out there right now. People are feeling good about the economy. And they want to get to going again. There's just this vibration going on. I'm getting phone calls from people going, hey, I want to sell and I'm looking to upsize or downsize. I want to make things happen. Again, where they were quiet for several years. This 5-year period of time that you were talking about, we're getting our equity back from where it was.
Right.
That 5 years is a critical point. And when people start to see their equity increase over where it was 5 years ago, they're starting to feel like it's safe to sell again.
So the confidence level, the consumer confidence level, you're saying is what's doing that.
That's right.
That's a good point. Al, do you see that too?
I do, and I think the buyers are also super well educated now, in part because of the internet, and in part because I think the agents here in 2018 are bringing a lot more information to the buyer pool. And so the buyers, especially if they're trying to be in that under 300 or just over 300, they are knowing what a good property looks like. They know it'll finance. They're writing strong offers, and they're not afraid to be in a multi-offer situation if they have to be. Our investor pool is equally aggressive. We have maybe 20-30% cash buyers out there. A lot of them are investors, but for the most part, people, I think, are trying to get their property now. Especially if they're getting a mortgage, they're really, really worried about the interest
About
rate
the
changes.
interest rates
and that
going
will,
up, yeah.
And that will affect prices. If the interest rates go up too fast, and we don't really know what the Feds are going to do because they always threaten and change and threaten and change. But the economy, like Don said, is really good now. So why wouldn't the Feds go ahead and do multiple rate increases this year? For sellers, that could affect their price.
And that's good timing for the millennials because you might have seen the millennials have finally snapped out of their funk and their fear factor for what happened to their parents.
Yeah.
And they've decided to start entering the market. 32% of sales across the nation last year
first-time
were
home
first-time
buyers.
home buyers.
That's, I wish I knew what the figure is in Jackson, Josephine counties of that. I don't know if it's that high, but it's a very high figure nationally for that. And Joe, you have a lot of buyers that you're working with, but the variety of them. It's what they're here for, looking for, right?
Yeah,
isn't that interesting?
It's all over the place. And in one of my Medford situations, we're looking for the South Medford School District and
Your specific areas you're looking for.
4-bedroom property that's got some extra living space, and we have not seen a bunch of candidates, but since January we've looked at more than we did, I think, for sure in November, December.
You're looking at a lot of specific places.
It's very micro market kind of areas of where we're looking for specific areas, school districts, and things like that, and that just exacerbates the inventory shortage that we have when you're looking in specific areas like that. It just really takes some patience and determination till that right property pops up.
Listen, pending sales. Pending sales are up here in Jackson County 51% from a year ago in the same 3-month period. New listings are up 40% in the 3-month period a year ago.
During the winter.
Yeah, during the winter. So we're talking, as we said earlier, there's a lot of activity going on. The average days in the market, which Alice pointed out when we started our show, have really crept up in that time period with the increase in inventory from 46 to 57 days. That's an increase of almost 23%
But
there.
that's still a seller's market, technically, because normal market's 180.
And you always talk about list price, versus how much you get for the list price versus the sell price. In Jackson County, it is now at just about 95%. It's down a little bit, actually, from there. Available homes per buyer, they're up 7%. So that shows more inventory, right, in the market, is what that would show.
God bless, but what buyer doesn't want to have a little negotiating power or find a little niche or find a little crack in the armor of that seller's price? It's just not there, and you just have to really be fair with them and let them know that that's the reality of the market. So we really refine our searches to our price category that we can get into and make a play on.
And that's why having a good agent really matters. And I'm not just saying this as a real estate person. I'm just saying it because I'm an older person, and there's all these just adorable millennial people that are ready to buy, and you can't have your expectation too high, and you need to be educated.
Yeah,
you need to
you're
watch
right.
the market, and you need to write those strong offers and not be afraid of multiple offers if you're under $300,000.
Yeah,
but
because you can go ahead. Yeah.
But Alice, I just want to know, what's that have to do with being an older agent?
Yeah.
Oh, that's just because I just love the millennials. I call them all my kids, and I want
that's
every
what it
single
is.
one of them to have a house
And do well.
I want them all to have a house.
Well, they'd be my grandkids.
That's right.
But we're all in a generation, all of us here on radio today, seeing the market go up and down, and just hoping that the generation behind us has homes to call their own.
Yep.
Yeah.
The opportunity
Yeah. Well,
for
you
that
see,
American dream.
Well,
and Don, those grandkids, they're clients someday.
That's right.
I give them my cards all the time.
That's right. They're all prospective buyers.
Everybody is. Okay, month supply of inventory here is down 6% from a year ago, which means that there's not supply is really bad. There's not a lot of supply out there, and then available homes per buyer, that is actually up 7%. So that has increased across the valley. So
Boy, and that supply
we see
is
some
just
of that
such a
supply and
catch-22.
demand.
We got sellers that want to make the move and are thinking, I do have the equity, I can make a play. Where the heck am I going to go, and where am I going to land?
That's it.
It's a hard nut for them to crack sometimes.
So are you looking in terms of buyers? The indication are that the luxury market has kind of slowed down a lot around the valley.
Yeah,
it seems like is that
We're luxury million and over. Did you see
Yeah.
how many sales there weren't last year in comparison to years before?
there weren't very many. Were
There's
they?
like two.
Yeah, no, there are not very many.
Yeah, two
out there.
over a million. Is that Did you see that?
It's depending on which category. There's people that are looking to do the cannabis farming, and those have a certain buyer pool. And then there's people that just have beautiful estates or river property. But the market is softening in part because some of our cannabis inventory is not being purchased because now they can buy in 6 or 9 other states,
right.
however many legalized it the last election. But the interest rates going up, I think, really affect these luxury markets, because if you're not going to write a check and pay cash, then boy, 0.5% in $1 million home really makes a big difference. So I'm so curious to see what happens with our luxury market in Southern Oregon this spring.
Because there's a lot of inventory. There's 44 listings in the MLS of $900,000 and higher price properties. 48 that are in the market.
And because that market,
that's a huge market. That's a lot. And when you have no sales,
so that's a buyer's market.
That's a buyer's market.
That's a buyer's
different.
market. So you can make a deal and get a good interest rate.
Now, that's really important. That is a buyer's market. So the whole market, while we talk about it being hot or this and that, it's different if you're a buyer or if you're a seller, if you're a renter, and if you're an investor. There's 4 different markets out there all in one.
If you get up into
That's what we're talking about. Hey, we're with Alice Lien and Don McCoy on a John L. Scott Market Watch show today on the Real Estate Show here on KMD. Got a break coming up. We're going to continue. Don's got a book he's going to share with us and a whole lot more when we return after this. Real Estate Show continues here on KMED this weekend. Pete Belcaster and Joe Brett, the Real Estate Guys, with you here today. Hope you're having a terrific weekend. Don't forget the home show continues through today at 4 o'clock out at the Expo Park. A lot of people have been out there, so hope if you still have some time, you might want to check that out. It's worth the $5 going to that thing. It's a good event, you know. You were there? You were there?
Yeah, I was there, man, in the John L. Scott booth. Did anybody see me?
I didn't. But I wasn't there when you were there, though, either. So that's a big event. There's lots of people. I know that, people say when you go out there, but there's a lot of business that's conducted out there. And I can imagine with this year, it'll be interesting to hear. We got to get Brad back in here again, in a few weeks or so. It'll be interesting to hear the stories about the orders, the business that was generated by there. Because remember, you said with the economy, people are confident, and that's why this is happening.
I saw him today, as a matter of fact, and he told me that it's bigger than last year. They've actually moved product into the Olsrud building. So that's pretty good.
And they made 30,000 square feet of carpeting in about a 6-hour period, just in part of their preparations to get ready for that. So
it's a big event.
Pete, I don't know if you've done a lot of carpeting or flooring.
No, I haven't.
30,000 square feet is a lot of carpeting.
It's a lot to put in. Yeah. Well, anyway, so go out there if you can today, and we'll get an update when it's over. But the point being is that the economy is good, and so people are confident, and they are out there spending and buying. And when it comes to real estate, that's what it is.
Properties and the quality of their lives and the homes they live in.
Yeah, well, that's the good thing. Now, Dawn, you have actually put this down on paper about how in the world steps that you take or information about that's out there, right?
Today.
That's right. I thought for a long time, what, there's a lot of confusion in the marketplace for sellers when they get ready to sell. And so I picked...
For sellers that you're talking about.
Just for sellers. Yeah, predominantly it's about, when should I sell? And so I've organized the book to where you can go to any chapter that kind of strikes your fancy and what your needs are at this point.
All right.
And it's free. It's a free book.
Yeah. All right. What are the chapters in the thing? Tell some of the chapters that are in there that I want to hear about.
Well, the first chapter, I think, is the first one you would want to read, because do you need to sell or do you want to sell?
Yeah. Well, there's
a big difference there in there.
Do I need to sell
or do you want to sell? And needing to sell means you better price it right. And so I have a chapter in there on pricing that property right. If you need to sell, if you just want to sell, you want to play along with the market and waste your realtor's time, go for it. And you know what, Pete? You and you too, Alice, and you too, Joe. You guys can give it away. You just rip off the back page, and it's your book.
Yeah. Well, that's cool. Well, it's true. There's a big difference there. You say,
and you can hand it out.
Yeah. Is it a need or do you want to sell or you need to sell? That's a very good point.
It's a good one. I think
that's a good point.
That's a
Yep.
starting point.
And,
All right,
and
give
you
me
can get
another
it
one.
online. You can get it online. Just
Okay.
go to Don McCoy Real Estate. Just type that in, and I'll show up all over the internet. And just click on the website and then ask me for the book, and I'll send it to you in a PDF if you want.
All right. Give me another chapter.
A really important chapter.
All right.
The escrow process, the actual sales process.
The escrow process.
Yeah, once your property gets into escrow, what can you expect?
You're talking about from the
on?
seller's perspective now here.
What's the seller going to expect?
It's different than the buyer.
That's right.
Right?
And he wants to know what the heck the buyer's up to. Now, it's a realtor's job to take care of the seller and keep him informed and all that kind of thing. But you might want to read this chapter specifically if you're in escrow, just to see, so you don't have a guessing game
Surprises,
going on.
guessing games,
And you can
surprises.
ask your realtor intelligent questions.
That's good. You ever had issues with escrow?
Oh,
You got all sorts of things. You do?
Yeah, all the
Escrow,
time.
Alice, yeah.
Yeah.
So, and one of the things to keep in mind is that these days, when you're in escrow, the title company does lien searches. And in the old days, they did lien searches on the property address to make sure that if whatever loans were outstanding were paid off at the time. But these days, they do searches on the people. And it is the IRS's opportunity and the court's opportunity to collect money that's been delayed in being repaid.
Searches
FBI and child support. That's all in
Old
there.
DUIs. We almost had an engagement broke up right at the signing table because
Really?
old DUIs that were not disclosed from one of the engagement people to the other engagement people.
Jeez.
We all had to leave the room while they talked about it.
And that's where we put the counselor hat on.
Really?
Well, we left the room.
Okay, say that again. What causes things? So make sure people hear that. What was the thing?
There's searches done, lien searches and judgment searches done on the people now, buyers and sellers. So we need to remind the sellers, first of all, that if they have outstanding stuff, it's going to show up and it's okay. It will be taken care of in escrow. It's going to be fine. And if buyer stuff shows up and you're the seller, again, it's going to be okay. We'll take care of it in escrow. Don't freak out because they have old credit card debt, back child support payments.
So this is going to come out in during the escrow process, right? You're saying this comes
the
out.
title company is going to do a lien search called preliminary title.
That's right.
But now it includes the people
It includes you.
and what you've done in your past. It's going to be out there for the buyer and seller both to see. I mean, the seller to see if you're a buyer, whatever, right?
Right, and that's why it's so good that Don
Wow.
took the time to write this chapter on escrow, because people are so worried about just getting an accepted offer. I think they kind of gloss over the legal and the technical part after.
That's right. And you hit it right on the nose. That's what happens is you don't have to freak out because escrow will identify it in advance. There's time in some cases to get it resolved. And then it gets taken care of when the monies are all split up at escrow.
So when you buy a property now, you just don't buy the property. Now they're going to search your background on both of you and bring that forward. That's really interesting to me. Okay,
And if you're in
all
a
right.
life partnership, disclosure is awesome before you buy or sell something.
You just
Take the time.
there's words that she knows well. That's something. Experience that.
Interesting is one
Wow,
word.
wow.
A little bit distressing.
So anyway, you
is
can
another word.
Yeah.
You can get a free
I don't know
book.
if I want you to look
Okay.
that far.
You can get a free book,
Up the
Joe.
river.
You can order it anytime you want. Online, just go to Don McCoy Real Estate. Boom, there
Well,
it is.
by the
And
time we're
hit the
done, we're going to do
contact
that.
button
What else
and
you
do
got?
it.
Okay, what else you got in there? Chapter.
How clean does your property really need to be?
How
And-
clean? Wait. How clean does your property
Or
need to be?
your background.
Yeah.
I would suspect it needs to be pretty clean.
Yes, if you want the
you
value,
want your price.
if you want the
Okay.
value that you expect out of your property, you'd better go thorough.
It's gotta be clean. All right,
And
what else you
straighten it
got?
up.
What other
How
ones?
about preparing to sell your house in 90 days? You can do that, you know.
Preparing to sell in 90 days.
Just get your ducks in a row, and then in my chapter, it tells you specific things that you need to do
All right.
to get your home sold in
I'm gonna,
90 days.
I'm going to take his book. I'm going to read it
And-
because I have to sell mine in I have 120 days, 90
All right.
days basically to do it.
And one
so
of the-
I'm going to see what you say in there and if I'm following
It'll be a
that or
test
not.
case.
Right.
Test case.
And
yeah.
And one of the more important chapters, besides what's the selling process, the escrow process, is how much can a realtor really help you? And that's that's a generic approach to helping people wrap their heads around all of the aspects that they need to be looking at, and you as a partnership.
Yeah.
Because when they go to work with you, Alice, it's a partnership, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
And it has changed so
We're
much
all
in the
on
10
the same
years
team.
that we've been in the business. It has changed the role and what you can do, and the power and the knowledge that buyers and sellers have these days.
How
It's
many
changed the game, and
realtors?
we've found the new ways to help them and to bridge the gap.
Exactly. And how many here's the key. How many realtors did 1 or 2 deals all year last year?
A lot.
Do you know?
The
Most
majority of brokers
Only did one or two deals.
Right.
Over 400 realtors.
Well,
now you're gonna. And here's the bottom line. And I'm not dissing on brand new people in the marketplace. It's just reality. Depending on where you are with your property and its value to you, is you want to work with somebody that's been around a little bit, has good business skills, has business background, negotiating skills. They know what they're doing, and they sell more than 1 or 2 properties a year.
Alice Lien, that's one of the things that I know you talk about a lot, about the need and how are brokers of the future, this whole business, how it's changing, and the need for brokers, and you better be prepared for that to do it, correct?
Yes, and I think Joe hit it right on the head. It's a evolving industry, and the society is changing as well. People, people like having more time to research properties on their own before they decide to hire a realtor, whether they're buying or selling. So they come to us way more informed. So what we do for them to be helpful has changed.
That's correct. What we do has changed a lot. Absolutely. It's not the same as it was, is it?
We used to have the listings locked away in a safe that no one else could see. I mean, that's how far it's come with the internet and the technology advances that we have. Where people call up stuff on their phones.
96% of all buyers start online. That tells you a whole lot right there. The Real Estate Show, one more segment to go with Don McCoy and Alice Lien. We're coming right back to KMED after this. Real Estate Show rolls on KMED this weekend. Pete Belcaster and Joe Brett, the real estate guys, with you. Next week, the Rogue Valley Association of Realtors have a show for us. They always, provide some of those education courses that realtors take, and we think that you need to listen, as we need to listen to. You need to listen to it too, our listeners, because there's some great instructors. Alice and I, we were at a class. We spent 6 hours together at a pricing class last week. Remember that? Did you learn anything from that?
Yeah. They talked about having your house be really clean. You'll get more money for it.
Have you adjusted the price of your home now?
And that's one of the chapters in my book you asked about, Pete.
What was that?
It's called Pricing It Right.
Pricing it right. That is really the biggest, hardest thing to do, correct? I mean, would you say that as realtors is to price the home? I mean, pricing it right, and the sellers have their idea what it should be. You come in and do that, but pricing, but pricing is the most critical part of all, right? Yeah, no.
Well, it is definitely the marketing is a big deal because you want to have your listing look good.
Yeah.
You want the buyers to respond positively while they have a nanosecond, to flip through. And then when they get there, you want it to look good and be clean and be affordable in their price range.
It's kind of like Tinder.
It is. Swipe left,
swipe
swipe
your
right.
house better look good when you take that peek, or you're going to get swiped left.
We haven't talked much about foreclosed properties. They're still out there. In fact, I've got a deal going on with one in Ashland right now. But foreclosed properties, by the way, in the last 3 months, surprising to you guys, makes up 11% of the market still. Short sales are pretty much disappeared, but foreclosed properties are still out there. Remember, the difference right now of foreclosed properties and what it was a few years ago, these properties are bank-owned properties that they have kept vacant for years, and they're bringing them back now. You're not seeing FHA foreclosures. You're seeing bank-owned foreclosed properties, and the banks are in control of these things. And let me tell you, dealing with them has not been easy. You're going to do what they want you to do, and if you don't do it, bye-bye, somebody else will buy it. That's what's happening right now.
They forgot that we bailed them out way back when. They took all these bad loans, and now they've sat on them till the market and property values have risen.
And if the buyer
it's a double dip.
And if the buyer runs across one they fall in love with, just be prepared to know that you don't just rush into these things and get them knocked out in 45 days.
They're not going to happen. And in Josephine County, it's even less. It makes up only 7% of the market there. Well, it's 11% of the market in Jackson County. That's just an interesting stat there. Okay, so we're like here in the first part of February. Let me just get your prediction. What do you think the next few months, what are you concerned about? What do you think what's going to happen? And we can talk about renters and the renter situation as well as in our county. There's just a lot of problems besides this market that we see churning along really well. There's a lot of issues out there still, right?
Yep. And I think the rents are going to continue to go up, and I think there's going to be increased pressure on the tenant population to the point where it's really going to start causing some concerns for the municipalities. So I have a prediction that that portion of our market is going to continue to go up. It's a great time to be a landlord. I guess you look at it that way.
No, that's true,
and I also predict that the days on market and the inventory, that's going to stabilize, and we're going to have a more normal market over the next 8 months. But have me back, and we'll see if I'm right.
I'm going to remember that too.
The city of Medford is actively looking for solutions, what other cities are doing, and ways to stimulate multiple get some housing in the downtown core and everywhere they can.
When you go to those meetings,
it's a priority.
You hear that from them, right? You're hearing that in the county too.
The housing committee for the city of Medford very concerned with that.
Well, someone needs to be, because there's simply no alternative housing to go. I got lucky in my little downsizing project because I found a place that I can go, and I said tie it up for 6 months for me to do that. So I got lucky there, but most people don't have that time. Don, what do you think? I heard Alice's comments about that. What do you think the next few months is going to be like? I think Alice is right. You're right on a lot of things. Right on, absolutely.
I think so too, and I think that if anybody's like on the fence and deciding to list, just jump off the fence and get it done before inventory picks up and you have to compete so much with other like-kind properties as yours. So get in now, because inventory is still, it's still limping along. I don't think we're just inundated with inventory yet. It's still a seller's market, so get in now. But boy, if the trend continues, as Alice was saying and you were saying, we're going to have a plethora of properties to on the market in comparison to the last few years.
Well, in the previous 3 months, there was only 750 homes on the market in Jackson County out of how many thousands of them, and only 393 in Josephine County. And that's everything, okay? So if you just look at those, I can remember looking at these stats a few years ago. There were over 1,000. There were 1,100, 1,200 homes on the market not that many years ago that we were talking about this. 700 is not very many, even though we've seen an increase of it. That's what's so crazy about a supply and demand market. It's just no one's controlling it.
We're seeing that.
Isn't that weird? I mean, it's just the stats, they tell a good story.
I also think if you've ever thought about selling, because of the interest rates, your buyer pool is going to shrink and shrink fast. What does they say? Every point that goes up, every 1%, it's a 10% difference in what your buyer can buy.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah. So if you're thinking of selling, or you thought you might want to sell in the next 5 years, I'm just saying I think you should jump on it, because you're going to get closer to what you want. And as the months and years go by, it's going to be harder.
You're going to get closer to what you want to sell, but the problem is, where do you go on the other end? Right? I mean, that's the issue, right? If you're going to stay in this valley, you're really limited in the options that we see for you could go.
Well, if everybody puts their house on the market at the same time, then we can make it work.
Because people don't want to leave here, but maybe people. I wonder if people are being forced out of our valley because of this.
One of the most valuable things you can do to help your cause is to hook up with Alice or Dawn or someone like Peter, myself, that has been through the wickets, so to speak, and can help you plan and negotiate. Don't just say, I'm going to sell and just jump in. You've got to have a thorough and comprehensive plan of how that's going to play out and where you're going to land.
Alice, I'm doing a pre-home inspection on my house because you told me that I need to do that.
That's smart.
Right? You've been telling us that since you've been on this show, right? Listening to you. So see if it works out. And if I get the price, I go,
It will.
Well, I don't know about that. What else is out there?
I think another thing you could do, Pete, is go ahead and get that home warranty in advance. Pay for it, because while you're trying to sell your property, your appliances, your HVAC system, whatever you cover, is covered while you're trying to sell it. What do you think of that?
That's when it breaks, right?
That's another good tip.
Why not? So, because a lot of times the seller is asked to buy the home warranty
for the buyer.
So
I should buy it now.
Just go ahead and get it when you're ready to list, and that'll cover it during that time. And then, of course, it's transferable.
And you can transfer. Right, we learned that from Tracy Hugh when she was here. Well, look, we're out of time. Don's got the book out there again. You just Google Don McCoy, John L. Scott, and he'll get you a copy of it, right?
That's right. Practical ideas for selling your home in 2018.
All right. And Alice Lien, she's a terrific agent. We'll visit with you. We'll get your prediction. I look forward to see you. I hope you're true. That'll do it for the Real Estate Show today. Have a great weekend, everybody. God bless you all. We'll talk to you next Saturday and Sunday right here on KMED once again.
You've been listening to the Real Estate Show on KMED Radio, presented by the Rogue Valley Association of Realtors, along with John L. Scott Real Estate of Southern Oregon and Bank 34 Mortgage. For guest contact information, download our free app, or to watch a past show, visit us online at realestateshoworegon.com. This show is produced by Table Rock Productions. Join us again next weekend for Southern Oregon's one and only Real Estate Show on KMED. And thank you for making the Real Estate Show part of your weekend.